you're not able to get them, awesome, for like $1.99. Leave me alone, Adrian.
If you grew up in the late 2000s or the early 2010s, then it's safe to say that you've probably seen this guy before. And even if you don't know his name, that weird brown fuzzy thing with the wide open mouth and tiny little limbs, well, that's Domo-kun, the Japanese mascot who went from being part of some obscure TV bumpers to being a staple of Hot Topic shelves, internet memes, and most importantly, a face and character turned into just about any sort of novelty consumer product that you can think of. He was the cute little toast monster that for some reason would end up becoming such a massive fad that he was nearly impossible to escape. One of those weird anomalies of something that has no real reason to be a cultural icon becoming a cultural icon. And look, there's never been a shortage of pictures or characters that have no reason to be icons for specific types of people that become that way. I mean, we have Pikachu from Pokemon, Felix the Cat, Kurt Cobain, Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures album art, and probably the best comparison here, the entirety of Sanrio. Despite being completely disconnected from any of the source material or the fandoms of it, consumers, posers, and mentally ill weirdos everywhere will find some sort of effigy to base their entire personality and identity around. But the only reason it's weird is because in most cases, like everything we just pointed out, well, we can tell where most of them all came from. Even if you aren't a fan of the source material, everyone knows where Kurt Cobain and Unknown Pleasures come from. They're icons of music history. Felix the Cat is a rubber hose cartoon that aired when dinosaurs roamed the earth along with Betty Boop and everything else. And as for Pokemon, it's that thing that dudes who don't shower refuse to abandon as adults. There's no mystery here, everyone at least knows the source. But what about Domo? I bet most of you have absolutely not a clue where he comes from. And to be honest, neither did I. I mean, if you were at all around for DOMOMANIA, he kinda just spawned into existence. At some point after 2006, you just started seeing his face everywhere. And over time, he was just accepted as part of weeb and even scene culture. But I guess that's where the question gets begged here. Where did Domo actually come from? And how did this weird little creature become an icon in the West of all places? Well, I guess this is where my job comes in. Because I have to answer this as a lowly content creator who's here to keep your dwindling attention spans intact. So why don't we take a step back, grow out our scene fringe, start using cringy little words like glomp and ZOMG, and dive into the oddly adorable world of Domo-kun. Alright, let's try to tackle the big questions first. What the hell is Domo, and where did they spawn from? Like the majority of us, as a kid, I just kind of assumed Domo was from some anime or something, but in reality his origin point is a bit more of an oddball. Domo was originally just a mascot for the NHK back in 1998. And for those who are out of the loop, the NHK is Japan's public broadcasting network. Essentially, they can be seen as Nippon's BBC. He was developed in order to appear in some stop-motion shorts made to celebrate their 10-year anniversary of their satellite broadcasting. The name Domo actually isn't a real name. It comes from the narration that introduces him, where the narrator says, "Domo konnichiwa," or in English, well, hello there. The suffix kun was only later added to his name, to give Domo a more distinguishing name. And again, for the non-weebs in the audience, kun is a Japanese suffix given to young males, and one that would ultimately give the character a much more marketable name. Domo and the stop-motion animations were created by a designer and director known for their unique visual style. And if it looks at all familiar to you, it's because outside of his work on Domo, Goda has also done the music video for I'm a Bear by Utada Hikaru of Kingdom Hearts fame, as well as produced some other highly stylized shorts like that of Komoneko. But Domo is by far his most famous work, and it's easy to see why. The design here is just brilliant. It's unique but simplistic, cute but expressive. Characterized by his iconic open mouth lined with sharp, monstrous teeth, but his cute little rectangular body and soft and kind personality, if anything, Domo really just kind of reminds me of the kind of thing that you would see come out of one of Kaita Takahashi's projects. You know, the guy who made Katamari and Watan and all those little cutesy games. He might not be as colorful, but the whole shape and aesthetic, it is very similar.
Oh, I feel it. I feel the cosmos.
Now, the success of these shorts would end up leading Domo to becoming a popular character among children. And as with anything that becomes popular with children, it becomes a cash cow, where Domo would begin appearing in his own manga and books, and, well, even getting some shitty Game Boy games as well. Now, I'm obviously not Japanese, so I can't tell you how good these games did in Japan, but with this one, I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of one of those games that everyone had, but not a whole lot of people really raved about. I mean, it's this weird little thing that looks like it's a mix between a space shooter, rhythm game, side-scroller, just kind of all over the place. Honestly, it looks pretty fun, though I can tell just by looking at it that's probably rage-inducingly janky. But again, it's yet another thing that would end up popularizing Domo with children. And with the success of the shorts and everything else, the masses would really come to love Domo and cement him as a formidable mascot, and his popularity would just continue to rapidly grow, at least in Japan. And hey, we've already kind of answered the curiosity, haven't we, now that we know where Domo comes from, or at least what his origin point is? Well, not really, because that leaves another question hanging, which is, if all of this stuff was Japan exclusive, then how the fuck did it end up in America? Well, that's where things get a lot more interesting.
お散歩してきてもいいちよ。けど壊したら殺すち。殺すち。殺すち。
During the mid to late 2000s, Domo would continue to rise in popularity as more video games, manga, and TV specials would be released. And as you can expect, this meant that Domo's Japanese presence would only become more and more popular. But where the seeds began to get planted here in the West starts with a few notable launch-off points. The first, and probably the most notable, Nickelodeon, who would end up teaming up with the NHK to launch Domo TV, a series of 26 2-minute shorts that would air on Nickelodeon's underrated side channel, NickToons. Alright, wait a minute. Okay, so we need to actually take a little bit of a detour to talk about this channel because it's a bit of its own little rabbit hole. NickToons was Nickelodeon's attempt at having its own secondary channel, a place where they could put more of the riskier cartoons and more experimental shows, as well as safely rerun a lot of their older catalog that no longer fit with the more family-oriented image that Nick had been going for come the mid-2000s. Nickelodeon has always had an odd reputation among the children's channels. It's always been safer and more age-appropriate than its main competitor Cartoon Network, who always held age-appropriate shows, yet still was known as the edgier channel for kids. Cartoon Network was known for taking on a lot more action shows, cartoons with edgier humor, or at least more nods to adult themes and jokes. And obviously, it had a teen section every Saturday night for anime, which was Toonami, as well as Adult Swim would take over the channel every night, so Cartoon Network had its own little reputation going. Essentially, if you were to rank the big three children's channels of this time period, you had Disney for babies and little girls, Cartoon Network for the edgy cool kids who grew up to become Odd Future fans and say fuck every 3 seconds once they hit the 6th grade, and then in the middle, you had Nick, who always kind of sat in the in-between categories of these channels. And while their 90s output was a little bit more on the Cartoon Network edge, just more abstract and weird, once the 2000s came around, it seemed like Nickelodeon was trying to hamper down and become a bit more family-friendly, especially as a lot more of their live-action shows would become the staple of the channel, and Dan Show Me Your Feet While I Beat My Meat Schneider had his reign on the network. Now, I'm going on this spiel because, believe it or not, Domo being broadcast here is actually a big reason as to why he might have caught on here in the West. NickToons was this odd channel that would attract an older and edgier audience because it was the place that Nick relegated reruns of their edgier shows like Invader Zim, Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's Modern Life, and much of their other 90s catalog. Though it was also host to a lot of new shows who would attract a more alternative audience. Like the anime parody Kappa Mikey, which is its own little hidden gem, as well as it would be the place where Edgar and Ellen would get their TV show adaptation, and this is also where the infamous Mr. Meaty would air.
Yeah. Hi, my name is...
Yeah, this is where that nightmare factory was relegated to. Now, Domo having aired anywhere because it was family friendly could have done well. But here, there was an audience of kids who were a little older, and by 2007 when it aired, were either really deep in their emo phase, or were younger kids who were soon to enter their scene phase. On top of this, having it air next to shows like Kappa Mikey, which attracted weeaboos like flies on shit, and Domo itself being a Japanese property, made this a demographic match made in heaven, planting seeds for Domo to become a staple out here in the West. Alright, I know this is unrelated, but in my research, I found out that Nick changed this whole channel into a non-stop SpongeBob network, and even changed the name of the channel to Nick SpongeBob, and look, I love SpongeBob. This is just fucking too much. Now, to talk about Domo TV, there isn't much to say about it besides it's fun, it's cute, and it's silly. It's a lot like the NHK shorts and everything we've seen before, just with a little bit higher of a budget, and obviously now narrated in English. Also, the show's theme song is a fucking banger. Like I said, these shorts were just fun and cute and would introduce this whole little cast of characters, none of which saw the same fame as the titular Domo, but still, I can see why a lot of people really loved this. The whole thing was just a wholesome and fun little time, and if you were a fan of stop motion animation, which was really big with the alt crowd at the time thanks to the likes of Tim Burton and movies like Coraline, it would allow for the show to get its own cult following. And it wouldn't take long for companies to capitalize on this, because in the following year, 7-Eleven would end up teaming up with the NHK for a Domo ad campaign as well.
I can't believe this is your first Slurpee, Domo.
Wait, careful not to drink it too fast. Could get a brain freeze. You see?
Are you okay, Domo?
These 7-Eleven advertisements would end up airing on both Nick and NHK, and just like the shorts had done at the time, it would really help to not just boost Domo's popularity, but normalize him as a public figure, just now in the West. And around the same time, English variations of the manga would end up being published by Tokyopop. And just as he did in Japan, this would lead to a complete takeover. Because around this time, and actually a little bit before this, shops like Hot Topic and other mall stores had begun selling Domo merch. It wouldn't be anything crazy like we would see in the later years, but you would see plushies and the occasional shirt. And by the end of the decade, even Target wanted to get into this as well. And they would have their own little ad campaign with Domo and sell a lot of merchandise and exclusive plushies as well. And alright, there you go. Domo was originally a mascot for the NHK that became a popular kids character in Japan. Then he ended up having a show out here in America and appeared in some commercials, which made him popular in the West, getting his own little shelf at Hot Topic and become popular with teen kids. But that's not the full story, is it? Look, if we really want to know the true kickoff for Domo-kun out here, our wholesome NHK mascot was, well, he was propelled by early meme culture.
Ah. 仕方ないよ。諦めなよ。何？ん？
Like most things on the early web, Domo came from Chan culture. And like most anime-centric things from the early internet days, it came from 4chan's great-granddaddy, 2channel. Here, Domo would quickly become a meme where he would exist as an ASCII image, and people would post him, and look, that's just what the Know Your Meme page says. I don't speak Japanese, and I can't read 2channel, so where things really get rolling here, at least in the West, is with everyone's favorite old website known for kickstarting a lot of early meme culture, Newgrounds. In a collaboration game, Domo would be introduced to the website through the creatively titled game Domo-kun Angry Smash Fest. And while this didn't explode in popularity and become a giant cultural milestone for the internet, it would be key to getting the ball rolling, as Newgrounds was a haven for edgelords, weeaboos, and all sorts of internet demons. And not long after, in the same year of 2002, what is probably the most infamous picture Domo appeared in would end up being posted. And it would be a poorly photoshopped picture of two Domos chasing a kitten with the caption, "Every time you masturbate, God kills a kitten." Every time I see this fucking image, it kills me. It's so fucking stupid, and honestly, it's not hard to see why Domo would catch on after appearing in fucking this. Because, let's be honest, he might be cute and all that, but he's a really goofy looking character that if you put him just about anywhere where he's not designed to be, he just looks stupid and silly and just instantly memeable. And after that wonderful piece of art was gifted to the internet would do what it does best. And Domo memes would begin to sprout up on places like YTMND, 4chan, Tumblr once it came online, and In conjunction with the growing popularity of Domo's actual shows and the commercials, all these different avenues of popularity would culminate in the snowball effect.
You know, I went to 7-Eleven today, and I got this Domo cup. Yeah. Excuse me, Alyssa, I'm making a video.
Now, given the basically 10 years of growing in both Japanese and American pop culture, Domo's online presence in meme culture, as well as the fact that he was marketable to many demographics, come the late 2000s and early 2010s, Domo-kun was a full-fledged cultural icon and became one of the most inescapable things that you could imagine. And this was an era that I like to call DOMOMANIA. All over stores, especially places like Hot Topic, his merch would be plastered loud and proud. Even in mall toy machines, little plastic statues of him could be won if you played them. And, you know, if you knew any girls around this time that were into any weeb or scene shit, then they probably had a Domo phone charm or a keychain. He was basically the last member of Sanrio at this point. And while calling this era Domomania might be a bit of a stretch, since it was not like he was being talked about 24/7, it was a quiet cultural dominance. Because even though a lot of people didn't know his name or where he was from, just about everyone knew that face. If I had to compare it to anything, it's very similar to the whole Paul Frank monkey that was popular in the mid-2000s. Just a unassuming mascot with little to no star power that, out of nowhere, you started to see everywhere and became an inescapable icon. And when I say that Domo was inescapable, I'm not just trying to play it up for laughs or for, comedic purposes. When I say that this thing appeared on everything, I mean everything. Just look at all of this. And it's never ending. Whatever his face could be slapped on, it was. And he really was everywhere for a while. But, as with anything, Domomania wouldn't last forever. And come the mid-2010s, when the whole scene thing was finally fading off and anime's whole moe lucky star era was transforming into the neo shonen era, Domo would quietly fade into the darkness from whence he came. And it's actually kind of odd just how fast he disappeared, because again, if you were cognitive at all between 2006 and 2014, Domo really was at superstar level. But then again, I guess it does make sense. He was attached predominantly to 3 specific subcultures, each of which had their era come and go. And as time passed, his relevance would fade along with them. But that's not to say that he still doesn't live on, because in recent years, Domo has become part of nostalgia culture. And look, if cycles really do repeat, then it won't be long until we start seeing his face pop up everywhere once again. But at least for now, Domo is just that, a nostalgic memory of a better time. Now, before you go, this is my wall of shame. The list of people who throw their money at me to make sure that I keep making videos. And while normally I'd make a little joke about how it's a bad financial investment, I actually can't think of any better way of spending your money than investing in me. But then again, I am biased. But in all seriousness, I can't thank you all enough for the support, and I hope I can keep entertaining you for as long as possible. I had a lot of fun making this silly little Domo video because, like I said, Domo was just this really interesting little case of something that has no reason to be a huge, era-defining icon, becoming a huge era-defining icon, and growing up, I would see him everywhere, and in all honesty, I miss the little shit. I hope he comes back. And I saw some Instagram posts from the official Domo account saying I guess they're going to be doing more stuff with him soon, so that'll be cool to see. But yeah, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the videos, and I've got a lot more up my sleeves. So With that, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.